Hello there people of the internet, CJ the prop maker back again with another video. Well, the time has come, the time we've all been waiting for, part 2 of the foam sword review. Or, I guess I should say, part 2 of the foam sword review plus a rant, plus a warning not to buy from a certain online shop. I'll get to all of that stuff in a second, but for now, a bit of background. The year is 2018. I'm a high school student in my final year, and I just discovered that live action roleplay is a thing, and I had started going on a huge video binge on YouTube, watching video after video after video after video of LARP related content, including tutorials on how to make your own LARP weapons, where to buy your own LARP products, whatever. But you must understand that back then, DIY wasn't an option for me. Back then, I had no idea where on earth I was going to buy EVA foam or even yoga mat foam so that I could make my own foam stuff. I had no idea where I was going to get fiberglass rods from. Some kinds of DIY were open to me, like I was able to make several boffer swords, but they weren't satisfying for me. I mean, sure, I could swing them around and hit as hard as I wanted to without them breaking, but I wanted something a little more realistic. So I started looking on the internet for budget-friendly LARP weapons. Back then, I had no idea that shipping costs were a thing, so you can imagine when I encountered some budget-friendly LARP swords, and then I went to go check out, you can imagine that I was shocked to see it was going to be that expensive. So that wasn't an option for ages until recently, when I had my own bank account and could spend my own money. And there was one brand of budget LARP sword that I had my eye on for quite a while. Ever since I saw a video by Lord Draconical. He's still going to this day, and he makes videos reviewing mostly Nerf related products, but he does some other kind of foam swords on the side. And I saw a video of his where he was unboxing a bunch of swords by the brand SPARKFOAM. Most of them were katanas, but there were a few other swords in there that caught my eye. There was an Excalibur, there was a Viking sword, and there was a Templar sword from Assassin's Creed. You know, the katanas, I could take them or leave them, but those three swords, the Excalibur, the Viking sword, the Templar sword, those caught my eye, and they made me want to buy these. But here's the problem. Although Lord Draconical mentions that they are compatible with Nerf products, and I have seen videos where Nerf products have been used in LARP, and I have no experience with Nerf products, or at least the Nerf melee range, and despite having never seen a single SPARKFOAM sword being used in a LARP situation, I was instantly hooked. I was thinking, yes, these are the swords I want to buy when I get the chance. The trouble with this is that there is not a lot of video information on the internet about SPARKFOAM weapons, and what there is, it's shaky at best. There are some videos out there of the company owner, I think, demonstrating how durable the swords can be, and he's like smacking them up against trees and forklifts and lampposts and pillars, what have you, and he's bending the tip round to touch the pommel and it coming back to true. That's all good and well, but that still doesn't tell me anything about how well the foam compresses. And that was warning flag number 1 I should have seen. But, you know, the SPARKFOAM website advertises their products as LARP friendly, so I had no reason not to believe them. But upon receiving their products, I have some doubts. So these are the SPARKFOAM swords I wound up purchasing. As you can see, this one here is a fairly basic medieval hand-and-a-half sword design with a fairly straight crossguard and a round disc pommel, pretty basic. And this one here, some of you Lord of the Rings fans may recognize this one. It's Aragorn's Ranger sword. Now, At first glance, these look alright. They look like any other budget-friendly injection molded LARP sword on the market. There are several things here that make me question whether or not these would be allowed on a LARP field. Firstly, the foam doesn't really compress that well. It does compress, but not very much. It compresses more when you, if you can see this well, the edge doesn't compress very well. Also, the blade is very, very thin for a LARP sword, which makes me question whether or not shortcuts were taken in designing these products, and whether this ridge over here is part of the design, or if that's just the foam constricted around the core that I'm feeling. Also, I have modified this one slightly already, because as you can see, the edge, don't know how well you can see this, but the edge here is a little bit fuzzy. That's because when these swords first arrived, both of them had edges like that. Now what that is, SPARKFOAM advertises their products saying that they have an additional coating of vinyl-like material on their blades. And so that's what you're seeing. That seam there, that's the vinyl-like material, but it leaves a very fine edge, and some would say sharp, for a LARP weapon. So with this one, I trimmed the seam down and sanded it so that the edge would be smooth. It works to a certain degree. Also, we have the unusual predicament that because the blades don't compress very well, they are really uncomfortable to get hit by, especially right up near the tip, where the foam doesn't really compress that well at all. Even through this thick wool-lined jacket, I can feel that. I am hesitant to allow this on a LARP field. This one's slightly better, but not much. Also, I feel like this one was a factory defect, because if you listen carefully, you can hear it sounds to me like the core has come loose from the foam. Don't know how well you can hear that, but it sounds to me like the core is just rattling around inside the foam, which begs the question, how well is the core secured to the foam in these weapons? Or is it just the construction overall that causes it to have that noise? Because I don't have that problem with this one, but then again, this one is a more solid construction. You see, the handle is connected to the guard and the pommel, whereas this one, the handle and the pommel are not connected to the guard. Now, if you remember my other foam sword review, you'll remember that I was hesitant about whether or not my homemade foam swords would pass the safety inspection of a LARP. Well, after handling these, I'm starting to have more confidence in myself, because my homemade LARP swords are more LARP friendly than these. These I don't think would pass the safety of any LARP groups that I know of. But again, I don't have any professional experience LARPing. I have never been LARPing. I have never held a properly made LARP sword in my life, so I have no idea what standards are like. But I do know there are different styles of LARP for which there are different kinds of criteria. In the event of a game that has live combat with light taps, then these could pass, or maybe even at a salon LARP, where it's a parlor LARP where you don't live fight but you can use props. These might work a lot better, but in a massive full contact combat LARP, these I don't think would fly. The blades are too firm. So yeah, I don't think these would fly for a full contact LARP. Maybe a LARP with light touches, or maybe even a parlor LARP where you just need like a prop sword to hang on your belt. These would work fairly well. Or these could even be useful in theater, because you know you can fight with them. You can see from the blades there are several spots here where the blades been pushed in. That's because me and my brother, we intend to get our money's worth out of these. So we're going to use them for combat regardless about whether or not they would be useful in a LARP or not. But I intend to modify these in the future so that I can use them at my own LARP for maybe an NPC who is more familiar with the rules and he won't go that hard. You know, something like that. Or maybe just hang them on a wall of the tavern as like a decoration. I don't know. But I do intend to try modifying these so that I can get some use out of them. Now, do I think these are better than homemade swords? No. The answer is no. If you have the option of choosing between SPARKFOAM and making your own swords at home with products that you purchased yourself, make your own. Stick to making your own. You'd be much better off. These, again, I heard rumors somewhere that they're more designed for Nerf combat and airsoft combat than anything else, and I don't have experience with either of those, so I don't know if there's some merit to those statements. So if you play in a LARP that allows Nerf products, then these might pass, but again, I don't know. I have never experienced those kind of things. But if you have an option between making your own swords at home and buying these, stick to making your own. You will be able to make them to your own specifications, and you will be able to make them as safe as you need them to be, and they will compress much better, and they will be much more pleasant to have a fun fight with. Right, now we've arrived at the part of the video where I talk about my criteria for what makes a decent LARP weapon. And I have streamlined my criteria since last time. So, first piece of criteria, safety. Can you feel the core of the weapon through the foam? Does the foam compress nicely? And does the tip collapse to allow thrusting? In terms of safety, I'm going to give SPARKFOAM swords a tentative 5 out of 10. The foam, as I said before, does not compress nicely at all. The tip, you can thrust with the tip and it does collapse, like, don't know if you can see this, but it looks to me like there's some provision for thrusting. Not that you would want to, because the blade is so firm. Also, if I feel along the spine here, I think I can feel the core through the foam, but you're not exactly going to be striking people with the flat of the blade. So along the striking surface, even though it doesn't compress too well, I can't feel the core. So it's safe, but it's not pleasant. So for that reason, 5 out of 10. In terms of durability, well, it is flexible, and I can flex it like that without fear of the core snapping, or at least so far as I'm aware. I can twist it round and it doesn't feel like the core is coming loose, or at least not looser than it already is. The blade does crumple upon use, unfortunately. If you fight a lot with it, this will start happening on the edge. That is unavoidable. I've tried lessening these wrinkles with a heat gun. It doesn't work. So I'm afraid if you get some stuff like this on your SPARKFOAM blade, it's there to stay. Also, the paint job on the hilt, from a few fights, this is what has happened. The paint on the fittings has started to rub off. Also, in several places, the guards are starting, the rubber on the guards is starting to crack. So that leads me to question whether or not the guards are supported in any way. Even here on this one, where is it? Here. That is a fairly considerable crack there. And we've only had a few fights with these. Not even that hard. And this is the kind of damage we're getting. So in terms of durability, I'm going to give SPARKFOAM swords, again, a tentative 5 out of 10. The blade is durable enough, but it crumples upon impact and there is no way to reverse that crumpling. And the guard lets it down because it doesn't appear to be supported in any way, and the paint has started to chip away. So the best I can do for SPARKFOAM in that case is 5 out of 10. Now, in terms of aesthetics, the swords do look pleasing. The blades have a nice sheen to them, a very glistening, shiny appearance. So if you like shiny, then that's pretty good. But it doesn't look very realistic. One look at the blades, and those who have knowledge of swordsmanship will know that they are fake. But the guards are not too bad. A lot of LARP swords on the market have a problem of having really chunky guards or pommels or what have you. These swords don't have that problem, so they are more realistic in the handle area, but the blades are unquestionably fake. And in terms of customizability, you can't really choose any custom options. The best you can do is choose from a catalog of designs, and this is what you will get. But ones like this are kind of a blank slate. You can take a sword like this and you can add gems to it, you can support it, you can modify it, whatever. So in terms of aesthetics, I'm going to give them a 4 out of 10. Realistic in the handle department, not so much in the blade, and the sheen kind of makes them look comical almost. So 4 out of 10 is the best I can do in that regard. In terms of availability, this is another big drawback to SPARKFOAM products, because it's hard to find SPARKFOAM products for sale these days. Or at least it's hard to find genuine SPARKFOAM products. So all of the criticisms I've had could be unfounded, because these could be bootlegs, but I have no idea. They were labeled as SPARKFOAM products, but I have a feeling that these might have been bootlegs sold as the genuine icon. But I'll get into that just now. In terms of availability, let me just say, unless you can buy one second-hand, or if you can get in touch with the company itself, then availability is 2 out of 10. They are not available from a lot of places. Several of their line have sold out completely, and it's unlikely that they will ever make any new ones. So 2 out of 10. Cost. Do I recommend them for the price? Again, these might be bootlegs, but if all SPARKFOAM products are like this, no, I do not recommend them for the price. Unless you want to buy them for dedicated airsoft or Nerf or just casually practicing swordsmanship, then they might be worth the price for you. But if you want to buy them for LARP, I am hesitant, because if you spend all that money and then they wind up not allowing it, that is going to be a massive disappointment. So in terms of cost, I don't recommend these for LARP. Spend a few bucks more on a more reputable LARP brand and you will be better off for it. Do I recommend SPARKFOAM swords, all things considered? Well, if you can get a hold of them, and if you want to just have a couple of swords lying around the house for, you know, having a fun play fight with your friend, then maybe this could be a viable option for you and I would recommend them. But if you're looking for something purely for LARP purposes, no, spend a few bucks more in a more reputable store. These are not for you. And do I recommend them for kids who are interested in playing with swords? Sure, if you want to buy a sword for your kid, you can do a whole lot worse than these. I mean, these are a lot more durable than those flimsy plastic toys you can buy in toy shops. So yeah, if you can find these and your kid wants to have a sword that he can play with, then go ahead, buy it for your kid. Now we come to the part of the video that I wasn't looking forward to, and that is the part where I have to talk about where I bought these swords from. As I mentioned before, SPARKFOAM swords are no longer readily available on the market. They were once available to be purchased just off Amazon, and you could purchase their whole medieval sword range, which would have been ideal for me, but the problem with that is all of the medieval swords they had available are no longer available. They're all sold out. So I had to go to another third-party company to buy these, and this is where the warning comes in, because as I said before, these might be bootlegs. And also one other reason. You see, as it was, I was supposed to have bought 4 of these. These 2 and 2 others. The Templar sword from Assassin's Creed and Unduril. But the trouble with that was, the site that I bought these from did send me 4 swords, but the trouble is, they sent me 2 SPARKFOAM swords and 2 swords from a completely different manufacturer for a whole other purpose. Same designs, more or less, but for a completely different purpose, and that is cosplay. Now, the swords that they did send me are very attractive, no question. This being the Unduril from Lord of the Rings. It even has the inscription in the blade and on the pommel, and it's a very beautiful sword, but it has several problems that would make it unsafe for use in LARP, which is the purpose for which I bought these swords and the purpose for which these weapons were advertised. I'm not joking here. The sword that was advertised on the website was not this sword. Same design, but different make. It was supposed to be like this handle, but with this style of blade. And yes, this blade does compress better, but the tip doesn't collapse. And the crossguard is not reinforced in any way. This tells me here that we have a cosplay sword, which is disappointing to me. Then we have the Templar sword, which again looks beautiful. I mean, if this was actually made for LARP, I wouldn't be disappointed. If these swords Now, if these swords were made for LARP, I would not be disappointed. But because I know they're made for cosplay, that's what steams me up, because the weapons I bought and paid for were advertised as LARP swords. But as you can see, once again, tip does not compress, meaning that it is not thrust safe. The blade does compress, but as you can see, the crossguard is not reinforced in any way, to the point where it's even cracking here. Also, the brand of this sword is Otaku Gears, and given that these two swords have very similar blades, I can only assume they're made by the same company. So here's where the warning comes into full force. If you are looking for a budget-friendly LARP sword, or if you're looking to purchase SPARKFOAM weapons, do not purchase from medievalgears.com, because they will advertise SPARKFOAM products to you, and in their place they will sell cosplay versions of those products made by a completely different company just to get your money. Now, I know what you're thinking. Why not just return them? Well, I considered that, but it's not an option. I cannot return them because I have opened them and I have found them damaged. So they are just going to accuse me of damaging them myself, and they will not accept them back. Also, returning them won't get me my money back. So I'm just going to make the best out of this situation, and I'm going to warn you all not to purchase from medievalgears.com. I cannot prevent what happened in the past from happening, but I can prevent a lot of disappointment in the future. Do not buy from medievalgears.com unless you're looking for something purely for cosplay purposes or what have you, then go right ahead. But if you're looking for something more LARP related, don't bother. Okay, nasty part of the video over and done with. But now, what is my plan moving forward? Well, with regards to these cosplay swords, I don't know. The best I can think of doing with these cosplay swords is fixing them to the point where they don't have any problems with them, and then maybe trying to sell them to one of the local comic book stores, or I can, once they are fixed, I can offer them up as a prize for my patrons to compete over. I don't know. I'll think of something to do with these, but in the meantime, I'm just gonna let these just sit in my cupboard in their bubble wrap prison, because I'm not gonna get any use out of them. But their cousins, on the other hand, they're gonna see plenty of use. So there you have it. This has been part 2 of the foam sword review. Not really what I expected out of these products. Even these, after holding these in my hands and using them in a LARP fight with my brother, these are not the kind of swords that 18-year-old me thought they would be. But then again, these could be bootlegs. I have no idea. If you have any idea what SPARKFOAM swords are like, please do let me know in the comments about whether or not these are a good indicator of quality or make or whatever. And as for these, well, I have no comment. The fact that I was sold cosplay pieces when they were clearly advertised as completely different LARP related products is disappointing. But at least you guys now know, and you are warned, and you can go out into the world without having to worry about being swindled like I was. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you'd like to see more foam weapon reviews in the future, I know that there are a lot more budget LARP companies out there. I know there's Hero's Edge, Luya, Rugi.com, Epic Armory. I'd love to give those a try. But for now, that's it for this video. If you liked it, smash that like button right down the middle and I will see you in the next one.